to
Hey,
assist in
Sheila.
yet. Our site location services are at no cost to you. They're confidential and completely unbiased. We
All right, guys, it is 1 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started as everybody filters in. Reminder, we are recording this today, and we're really excited about this project. A lot of opportunities here, and an exciting project that's in a phases of growth. And we've been really excited about talking with their team and really getting to know the project. So a lot of opportunities for everyone here. So please stay tuned. We're going to go through the project and kind of to talk about what we're going to talk about today, or go over some of the goals. We're going to meet our GSLI team. We're going to kind of give an overview of the project. Then we're going to actually meet the project, and we'll go through our Q&A as we do in all of our prospect lives. Who should be on the call today? We've got a ton of our community, which we call our elite cities, that are in participation today. Thank you for coming and setting aside your valuable time today. We've got some trial communities. Those are communities that are not a part of our elite cities network, but are here and could probably benefit from this project. So we're excited to have you here so you can see the transparency we bring to the site location process. We'd obviously love you to be a part of our elite network. And we've got observing companies and site locators. Those are some companies that have kind of want to see how this process works, to see if they want to participate in one of our prospect lives. Welcome. And site locators. Those are people that are engaged with other projects, taking a look at our process. And then we've got some communities that might not fit the parameters. It's not so aligned here because of the future growth of this company, but they just want to kind of see what are in the minds of expanding or relocating companies, so they can learn and better prepare their cities for welcoming companies like Project Aquatex. Few housekeeping items. Remember, all questions, there's a little Q&A chat button down at the bottom. If you have a question, please feel free to put it over in the question box. Please make sure you put your name and your area that you're representing, and then ask your question so we can know what part of the country we're talking to during that time. Reminder, we are recording and transcribing this. This will be available probably by tomorrow, and we'll shoot out that recording for you guys to re-listen to if you want to use that to help put together your submissions. And if we have a complicated question, I had one from David Val the other day that was kind of a nice, unique opportunity he had. Raise your hand and it'll give me the opportunity to find you and all of our guests and open up the mic and let you ask your question or present your opportunity. Who's on the call with us today? Myself, Eric Kleinsorge, founder and CEO, chairman of Global Site Location Industries. We've got my daughter, Ashley Kleinsorge. She is our person in the trenches, the person that works directly with the projects, gathering information, gathering the submissions, putting them together, and being kind of the communication link between GSLI and the companies. We've got Steve, he's the president and CEO of Project Aquatex. We've got Kirsten, who is the co-founder of Project Aquatex, and we've got Ruben, who is the president and CEO of Project Aquatex. Just a reminder, we do one thing and we do it really well. We're in the business of job creation. So Global Site Location Industries acts as the conduit between communities and companies that are expanding or relocating. We feel that if we serve that bridge, it opens new opportunities to these companies that they may have not considered before. It allows them to really put together a strong short list of communities that really make a fit for their project and would be a good location for them to consider. We do have an exclusive network of members on a state-by-state basis. Those are the ones that we communicate originally with. We know in depth about those communities and enjoy working with them to find these companies so that they can make their pitches and have an opportunity to get on the short list. And those communities that are in our elite network have an unlimited number of submissions that they can make to projects. Sometimes a project falls out outside of the parameters of one of those communities. So we will go outside of our network. We do put the project as a priority. So we allow a non-elite member to make one submission per year at no charge, and really get a feel for our process and the effectiveness in business attraction. Currently, we have 132 projects. Those can all be found at www.gslиprojectportal.com. You can see a list of all the companies once you create an account, and you can kind of go in and see which ones align with your communities. So if you are making a submission, you're making one that aligns with the company's needs. And communities interested in making a submission, all they do is log in. We've made the submission process very streamlined and quick and consistent, so it's easy for the companies to take a look at the submissions. Last year, we're excited. We announced 67 of our projects that have closed, and we constantly are in the process of updating those, so that number will grow as we finalize some of the projects that we've been identifying over the past 6 months. Big reminder, going global. Very exciting show. I know a lot of you may have attended Site Select USA this year. It was massive. And if you want to put that show on steroids, that's going global. I believe the Site Select USA or Select USA, sorry about that. They had about 1,200 companies in attendance there, and every single community was busy talking with those companies about what their intentions were in opening U.S. operations. At Going Global, we predict last year they had over 5,000, close to 6,000 companies in attendance. So we are a major sponsor. We're looking at putting together a USA pavilion to allow the states and regions to participate in a pavilion and gather everybody, so those companies can take a tour of the United States in one location and set up their meetings. So please keep your eye out for some emails coming up, and we plan on doing a webinar to really introduce what that opportunity is and see who would be interested in coming with us to the UK and participating in the USA Pavilion. So the project. This is a project that came to us. We have 7 different pillars that we implement to generate project leads. And this one came through one of our state initiatives of a program we call Choose Texas. And it was exciting because once we engaged with them, Ashley reached out, talked with them, and we found out it's not just this expansion. There is a bigger plans that are across the United States. And once you hear about this project, you'll see why it's exciting and what the opportunity is. With that, Ash, why don't you kind of go through the high level overview of the project and what we've learned?
Yeah, so this project we actually got in touch with in February. So it has been a couple months of just introducing each other, figuring out their project, what their needs are, and now we're here. So we're super excited to have them on here today. The overview of the project. So they're going to need a 15 to 20,000 square foot facility. That's going to be on 1 to 5 acres. They are looking to find it as soon as possible. Like I said, this lead was identified in February, so it's already been a couple months, and we are kind of on a just urgent timeline to figure out where they're going to be best placed to better their business and where their facility is going to the next home for them. So at that facility, they'll have 10 to 20 jobs. I believe that's by year 1, but we can have them clarify that when we open up the Q&A. And then they're open to lease or purchase, and that's going to be in Texas. That's going to be the first phase of their expansion. But like Eric mentioned, it's a bigger project than that. This is just going to be their headquarters. And then once we locate this, there is going to be plenty of opportunities for those states that are obviously outside of this scope.
Yeah, and as in our discussion yesterday, we found out the ultimate goal is one of these facilities in each state. And I'll kind of dive in a little deeper in what that means and looks like for the project. I put together this kind of as a strategy map from our discussions yesterday, and I want to thank their team for spending the time with us to kind of really share with us the long-term plan. So the first phase is to identify a location within Texas and use that as and serve it as their headquarters, and then expand outside, cover the coasts, and then work internally as they find. But I will dive in a little bit more and find out, what's going to make the deciding factor on the future growth of picking one state over the other as a priority in their expansion or relocation. With that said, we're going to open it up to our questions and answers. If you guys want to come on camera and unmute yourselves, just remember on the Q&A, please use the Q&A box down in the bottom, put your name, your community, and then your question, and we'll get to it. But we've prepared some questions that have come in from some communities to kind of really get the discussion started to learn about the project. So who wants to kick it off? Stephen, Ruben, Kirsten? Let's start by kind of talking a little bit about your project. Tell us a little bit about the business and the main reason for this expansion.
Sure. Kirsten, you want to take that since you're originally one of the founders, and I think that probably speak to you better. And I think we're going to get Steve. There he is.
Hey, Stephen.
Hi there. Let me start off with a little bit. Our water, our project is purifying and changing water. That might sound a little strange, but we all know purification. And in fact, one of the things that is being predicted by futurists now in the future is water wars. In fact, they think there's going to be large water wars across Europe and the Middle East. And even here, as you know, the floods and the droughts that we go through. And part of the problem with that is potable water. Everybody is probably now familiar with Camp Lejeune and all the poisoning of the soldiers, the vets, and the sickness and the families that they've gone through, and the plastics that are now in water. So our project is to purify water. And along the way, we actually have changed the structure, the molecular structure of it, technically the OH bond, but it is a changed water, which has great health benefits. Not only health benefits, it also extends into anything that uses water. For instance, alcohol. Some people are now making vodka with our water because it makes a superior alcohol. People don't get hangovers anymore when you make the booze with our water, quite frankly. It doesn't destroy your liver. It processes out of your body within 15 minutes. So within 15 minutes, you legally blow zero again. So this water has extreme health benefits to it. We're also under a clinical study for heart health with D-ribose and preventing AFib. And we're also speaking to some other people about using it with a protocol for health centers. So besides just, and it's just normal drinking water. You drink it and it provides these health benefits. Has nothing in it whatsoever. It's purified water, just purified water, but with a distilled water, but with a twist on it. Mm-hmm. We've had several athletes use it to enhance their performance. We've had a professional soccer team test it out in England to enhance their performance. Professional basketball player that was at the top of his game before he moved to Europe. Professional football player, professional baseball player, these type of things. And the same water they drink is the water that a normal person drinks. So we're looking for a community that would house us and help us with the future expansion, for the worldwide expansion we want to undergo. The headquarters would be in the town that we select. And they would benefit from our expansion on this basis. They won't have the facilities there. The other thing that's really, really important to us is we're not a Nestle's. We don't go into a community, do $1 a deal year for all the water we can drain out of your aquifer, cause damage to the local economy, to the local environment, and ship it all around the world for pennies on the dollar. We're looking to pay our fair share, of course, for the water usage, but we also don't intend on sucking your aquifers dry. That's one of the reasons why we want to locate these in the different states, so that the people only use their local water for drinking. And this basically has a zero imprint upon usage of your water. For instance, the water that you would drink out of a bottle is the same water that you would drink out of your tap. So it's a one for one replacement. And so instead of drinking that tap water, you drink this bottle of water, and the bottle, the amount of water that you would drink still remains in the tap for other usage. So we have a zero impact upon your community.
In fact, we're turning any residual wastewater cleaner than we got it.
And one thing I learned yesterday, a little bit about the difference, you're actually producing or presenting this water in a glass bottle versus a plastic bottle, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And so
That is correct.
the other thing is we don't, excuse me, pollute the environment. And in fact, what we would like to do is work with the communities to have an incentive to take the glass and regrind it back into its constituents parts, which is sand. And in Texas, that would be nice to be able to supply Texas with rebuilding the beaches again, because of the hurricanes and everything else that comes through and wipes out the beaches. Actually, they are doing that in the Middle East right now. That's how they're building some of their islands. They actually take all their processed glass, grind it in. In fact, they have several beaches now that are colored. They have different colors of glass for them. So they're have an orange beach and a black beach and a green beach and a blue beach and a yellow beach and a normal sand beach for enhancement. But basically, when you take our glass, you grind it back up again, it turns back into sand again. So there's a zero impact on it. So again, we are not having to worry about people burying plastic in your landfills, so that your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren have to suffer those consequences. I don't know if the people on this call know, but there is no unpolluted water anywhere in the world anymore. It's zero. They found plastic in the deepest trenches of the Adriana Trench, the fish there. They found it all the way up in the very top of Kilimanjaro, the birds up there, the animals that live up there, the snow that's up there. There is nothing anymore, nothing that doesn't have plastic in it. And we all know about PFAS, the forever chemical Teflon, that 99.9% of the people in the United States now have in their bodies, which cause cancer and everything else in it. And we actually remove all of those chemicals, remove everything from the water, so that the water that the people drink are God-given pure water.
Perfect. And that kind of dovetails, we've got a question in here from John. He's from the city of Ballinger, one of our elite cities. I've enjoyed working with John at some trade shows. And he wanted to find out, or is asking, what volume of water you need as affluent to the distillery on a daily average. Do you have those kind of numbers?
Yes, I do. We would need, for this plant, we're talking between a startup about 650 gallons per day, and that would go up to about 4,000 gallons per day. An average household will use between 300 and 1,000 gallons a day. So we're actually using less than the average household. Every
Okay.
time you flush your toilet, you do 30 to 50 gallons or so, they say.
Yeah, it's pretty minimal.
It's very minimal.
Okay. In terms of your current facility, could you kind of paint a picture, what the facility looks like, kind of the footprint that it has, to kind of paint a picture in their mind of what available sites and buildings they might have in their communities?
Sure. Our current facility is about a 14,000 square foot building. It's part office space, part warehouse, part manufacturing. It does not have the proper power we need. We would have to go through an expansion for the power, and I'll get into what the power requirements are. The workflow is not consistent with what we need. It used to be an old air conditioning sales warehouse. So they didn't really need a lot of power. And we're really worried about the consistent manufacturing flow. The other problem that we have here is not constructed properly. For instance, we were in a snowy area and they have a flat roof on this building. And they have overhangs on it. So when it does get warm, it builds up ice dams along the edges of it, which then causes leaks in the building. We don't have good access roads here. We want good access roads. As part of this, we do truck water out. It's in a floodplain. The last flood we had here was about a week and a half ago, and we had about 2 feet of water lapping against the side of the building coming into the building. That causes a problem. And because of the way it's construction, it's hard to heat and cool. So we have a lot of existing problems with where we are here. It was never built for what we meant to do with this. And
You guys
it's,
get that dried out, by the way, because I know your carpets were saturated and whatnot. It was
yeah, we do have it right now. I still have
rectified.
a big hole over my head with plastic over it where the water came in because of it melted.
Yeah.
And it's just, it was not constructed for this.
One of the many
whatsoever.
catalysts for us to move is that, just restructuring the whole company and getting out from that facility that was kind of, grown organically. We'd like to be a little bit more strategic this time, and obviously relocate in a place that's, shipping logistics are more favorable. They're in the middle of Idaho right now, and that's a very costly endeavor to move water around, move product around. We'd like a facility that fits our needs, access to potentially a new glass manufacturing facility that maybe something in Texas that we can source our glass from, source our boxes from, so all the aggregate resources that we need, we'd like to use out of Texas if possible.
That brings up a good point. We helped a box manufacturer locate within the last year, and I would love to make that connection for you in terms of your box production. But in terms of that, it sounds like you've had issues. So in terms of the new building that you're looking for, does it matter? Can it be a steel building? Does it tilt wall? Kind of describe the perfect type of building if you could find it. Does it need to be Class A? I know that it's did you say it was FDA regulated type facility? Are there any special requirements in the building?
The special requirements are that we are a FDA regulated facility, and we do have the FDA come in and look at us. The reason for that is we're a bottled plant, and of course we don't want to be overrun by rodents or pests or that sort of stuff. We do have pest control here, although we don't have any problems with it whatsoever. We get that taken care of once a month, but we have to make sure that we aren't overrun by any type of pest. We do want overhead doors, and I'm going to talk that about later, but just to store, it doesn't have to be anything special. It can be an existing building or a new building structure. It can be metal. What we need is some place that is more efficient than anything else. We want to be able to move product in and out. We do need to do some cooling, so we will have to look at how we cool the heat from these processes, whether it's blow it into the atmosphere or we heat water up for the city or whatever we might do. But yes, the pests that's a big concern of ours. We
Steven,
are
maybe I'm sorry, I was going to tell, maybe it might be good to give them an overview as to like what your system is set up. You know, you've got your filtration area, you got your water processors, you got the bottling, you know, different, maybe just the broad strokes on how that's set up
Yeah.
and how you
Yes.
ideally would like it.
So in our warehouse, we have a receiving area and we'd like to have a shipping area. So the bottles come in and then they go to a printing process, although these bottles in the future might be pre-printed. We hope they are, but they'll be printed. So we'll need a printing area. Then they flow into the bottling area. At the same time, near the bottling area, we have where the water flows into the building. And where it flows into the building, then we go through a cleansing process, which is a bunch of filters and reverse osmosis. And then we also do vapor compression at the time. And even through that process, then it's medical grade water. However, we then send it through my processors. So this is a continuous flow and it's sent through my processors, which then cleanse it even more. If you can cleanse medical water even more, we do. And then that's where it's also changed. That's where the structural changes the water goes through. That's located near the bottling area because then everything has to be done in stainless steel after we run it through the cleansing system, because we can't run it through plastic anymore after that. And we don't want any plastic leaching, and it has to be a 316L type of stainless steel pipes. And the storage tanks are stainless steel also. And from there, we pump that water over to the bottling line where we bottle. And then after we bottle, we put into cartons at this point, or people come in and purchase the water and we fill the carboys up too, for local people here who like to actually buy the big 3-gallon jugs of water and take it home and then drink it and bring it back, and we refill those again. And then that process then flows after they're bottled. We have an area where we box them, and then we sometimes before we box them, we will also put them on pallets, because we have a lot of people personally just buying pallets of water. They buy 500 or 1,800 bottles of water at a time for themselves or for their business or whatever. And then that goes into the storage area for shipping out. So we kind of like the flow where the bottles come in. They go through this bottling line, which washes them and cleanses them out. Then the bottles themselves that are filled then flow out into the warehouse, and then they're shipped out. So we have an incoming and an outgoing. And ideally, it's a U type of situation or an L type of situation.
Yeah, we got a question from Kim Little. She's down in Coleman, another one of our elite cities we've enjoyed working with for several years now. And she's kind of just asking, you tapped into it. Is there anything special, or what type of filtration or sediment removal do you do with the system?
We remove everything. I mean, I don't know if anyone's heard about ewg.org. If you do get a chance to go on that webpage, and they have a water base, and you can look up your zip code and you can see what the tap water is that's coming out. They've tested every source in the United States, actually. They have a database of them. And what we do is we remove everything in the water. We have less than 1 part per million, and actually, why we say less than 1 part per million, because you then need to go to some extremely sophisticated equipment to see if there's anything less than that. And most meters, unless you're spending 100,000 or more, won't test it. So we say less than 1 part per million. Basically, it's down to 0 parts per million. There's nothing in it, so we remove everything. So our system has a pre-filtering system. If we have to, we soften the water. We remove most everything through filters, then through a reverse osmosis system, and through DI filters, and then through a vapor compression system. Then that gets stored in stainless steel tanks so that it can be processed by my processors.
And
Perfect.
then your process is still a vapor type process as well, or a steam type process.
Yeah, but yeah, yes and no. It
Further.
creates steam.
Right.
My I actually use a EMF field to change the water.
Yeah, people are asking,
Electromagnetic
I
field.
see some of the questions. You might want to expand on that just a little bit, the structural changes and what we're actually doing to the water. You know, obviously there's some studies and some quantifiable data. That maybe just kind of speak in general terms as to what exactly is happening there.
Yeah,
We've had,
I was gonna say,
I'm
there's
sorry.
an anonymous question that came in. That's probably where you're getting that from. It says a water molecule has 3 atoms, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen atom. What is the makeup of your water?
It's still H2O, but that's a very simple model. That's like saying a Ferrari and a Volkswagen are a car, right? I mean, they both have 4 wheels, they have an engine, so they're a car. So what's the difference between a Ferrari and a Volkswagen? You forgot things like the engine and the gasoline and the size and that sort of stuff. With water, water is, yes, it consists of 2 hydrogens, but what is that hydrogen? Is it a heavy hydrogen? Is it deuterium? I don't know if people know the difference between heavy water and light water. A lot of people in the South should know the difference about heavy water because that was processed down there to make our nuclear bombs. And so we get into deuterium depleted water, which is another whole category, which ours is. We actually have had this water studied at many, many universities, and they have written scientific papers on it. And one of the big changes is the resonance of the OH stretch bond between the hydrogens and oxygens. So we have actually changed, and I have letters from universities on this through their studies, that we have changed the energy in the hydrogen and oxygen bond. And it's the stretch bond. There are 9 different bonds that we know of right now in water. And the reason we started out this study is because Martin Marietta and Rensselaer Tech College wanted to know, in NASA and the rest of the world, scientists wanted to know, what does water look like on distant planets? Because they all have different fields and different energy sources. And they found water on distant planets, but they didn't recognize it because it had a different EMF signature on it versus what we have here on Earth. So they did an initial study on what is water. Yeah, it has a hydrogen, 2 oxygens, but that's also like saying, did you know that a diamond and a pencil are the same? Yeah, they both have carbon. They both have carbon atoms. You know, your coal that you burn as a barbecue, that's the same as a diamond. I don't know if people know that or not, but it was formed differently structurally because of the pressures and the fields and the temperatures and everything that compresses that coal into a diamond. And so what we've done is we've recreated some of that EMF field in water and changed the structure of water. I don't know if that helps answer it, but it's our water is like a diamond to water versus, you know, a piece of coal or graphite.
Absolutely. You talked earlier about your current facility not having the right electrical requirements. Can you dive into that? We always get that question in terms of what are the electrical needs of the facility, if there's anything special.
Sure. One of the things that we're in an area that is farmland and has been farmland for a long time. So the power here is a Y system, which is great for when you have huge pumps pumping hot water out of the aquifers to do circle irrigation. But for manufacturing, it's not very good. And so basically the power coming in this building is the wrong power system. And they wanted 50,000 to 100,000 just to change it over to a new system. And then, as I told you, in here, it was basically for a showroom for air conditioners, and they had 3 or 4 of them. our processors are about the size of a microwave oven. And we're just like maybe what a computer farm would be. We have hundreds of these. We're going to start out with a smaller number and grow. And part of it is we want to be online all the time. We don't want to have one big facility that when it shuts down because of power outage or we lose a part, it shuts everything else down. So we've made this very much like a computer farm where there's a lot of these different things. So we need a lot of different plugs in the building, and we need those plugs to be 220. And 220 wasn't common in here. 480 was, and so was 960. And we can't use those voltages. We need a two-phase 220. As far as the total power consumption, the very first power consumption, let me refer to my notes here, is we would like to see 150 kilowatts initially in a building and up to 800 kilowatts. And that means we're going to be using 108,000 kilowatts per month up to 576,000 kilowatts watt hours per month.
Perfect. Thank you. In talking about your project, I always try to take a look at the overall how different parts of the business affect your location. And it seems to me, I've worked on water bottling projects before, the weight of water and adding glass to that means it's very heavy. So it seems to me logistics are probably going to be a real key factor of being able to get this out from the plant. What are some of the logistics you're looking for? Do you need rail, highway access, or just a central location to the city?
I'll let Ruben talk to that one, and Kirsten.
I would say all the above, I mean, we want access to a major highway would be nice, or at least, and then, at least general area. And then I think the rail line would be ideal as well. Kirsten, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, my 7-year-old is off for summer break, so I apologize if you hear her in the
That's why I'm at
background.
the coffee shop. And also, Kirsten, somebody asked, do you have a preference for loading deck height, number of docks, outdoor second building
Yeah.
storage? That was John from City of Ballinger.
Sure. Yeah, currently our facility is just bay doors. And so we have a forklift so that we can lift pallets into trucks for distribution. So we are pretty flexible as far as loading dock height goes. But what I was going to add as well is, we currently ship all over the country, all over the world. Obviously, we want to reduce our carbon footprint as we expand and begin to ship domestically or as close to each facility as possible. That's simply because, our costs, we have to be cognizant of our costs, and shipping can be up to 47% of our costs overall. So it's really important to us to be someplace that's population dense. We've done some feasibility studies, and we found that where we're currently located, it's a smaller town, and that's not really the issue. The issue is that the nearest biggest city is Salt Lake City, and so that's quite a distance for us to reach. And in between,
How far is that from?
It's about 3.5 hours south of us.
Yeah, so that's a lot different than what we're talking about here in Texas.
Yeah. Yep. So we want to be maybe within 100 miles of some of the larger cities, 1 million people plus. And the idea is that we just have so much product made for Texas that it won't even leave the state, that we'll distribute throughout the state, and all of the product would be shipped within the state of Texas and distributed within the state of Texas. So, as far as logistics go, railways would be really important. Access to trucks would be important, and local distribution would be important, even to the point where customers could even come and pick up product from us directly or refill from us directly.
Okay, that kind of dives in, and Stephen, you kind of tapped into this. Talk about your customers. Well, like, what's an ideal, are they college students? Are they businesses? I mean, if you had a perfect mix of population, what's the tipping factor there, and who do you find using the product?
I'll answer that. Everybody. We have them from, no, I'm serious. We have them from babies. A lot of women will put their babies. In fact, my grandchild is the first baby on this water, raised on this water. And I do brag about her because she's, you know, top of her class, reading 2 grades ahead. You know, I don't want to get too much into her, but she's the super child. All the way up to, I think the oldest person we had was 98 years old. We have a lot of people that are health conscious that like our water. We have a lot of people who have alcoholic problems who like our water because it helps their livers. It helps regrow their livers. We have a lot of people with kidney stone problems that like our water. We have people who want to be top of their game professionally in sports, drink their water. Our ideal person is the one who drinks water, to be perfectly honest.
If you want, I could even get technical as to like generally who we sell to. And in fact, Texas is interest of us because it's one of the top 10 states that purchases water from us the most. And in doing research in the past month, Texas was the #1 state to be buying water from us through our online e-commerce. Generally, it's half male, half female, 65,000 plus household income. They're usually early adapters or people that like to find new and up and coming products, trending products. They're health conscious, as Stephen had pointed out. But that also is varied with people who are suffering some sort of health ailment or looking to reduce instances of health concerns, mothers that want to provide good clean water for their family or good products for their family. So that's kind of the I guess the demographic that best describes. And so we'd like to have a good mix of consumers, direct to consumer sales, but also business to business sales. I think of us more of as a tech company that happens to sell water or bottled water. And so as Stephen had mentioned earlier, there's a lot of opportunities for us to sell this product in other areas, including medical field. It could be the basis to other products like alcohol. We have been using it for hydroponics, for instance. We've engaged some companies that do that. So there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of ways to diversify our portfolio, so to speak.
Right, and we haven't even touched on the wholesale and retail side of things as well,
Yeah.
which will be coming in our next phase. Because, you know, I'm coming from private equity. That's how I get involved in this whole thing. Hence the restructuring, bringing it to Texas. And so initially, we're going to do exactly what they're talking about, but eventually we'd like to scale up and make enough quantities of water to have inventory and therefore start hitting the wholesale and retail because we have a lot of interest in that. But as I'm sure you understand, you know, you can't, we're kind of in that no man's land right now. We can't get to that next step or next phase without the proper capital injection. Hence, kind of doing this in reverse, trying to find out where we're going to go, what it's going to cost, because I've got the money committed. We're going to do it in tranches. I think somebody asked about the capital investment. It's going to be several $1 million to start, but we have a $5 and a $10 and a $20 million expansion plan, and the capital stack and the capital committed from different sources is kind of loosely there. I mean, some of it's committed, but on the second and third phases, it kind of depends on where we go, how we start, and what we do. So, you know, reverse engineering it is what I'm trying to do here with the capital. But yes, eventually we will be, hence the, you know, expansion all over the country, so we can be strategically placed. But we'd like to be in retail stores as well eventually.
Yeah, I found that very interesting yesterday in our conversations about the potential of bringing in a linked industry, like you said, hydroponics and some of those things. Can you kind of talk about some of those possibilities? So it might trigger some ideas in the minds of the communities to say, hey, we have this type of company here that would actually use your type of water and maybe present that as a linked industry.
Yeah, like you said, there is no limit on what we can use this in. Alcohol is one big industry. We actually have been playing around and we can make whiskey that tastes like a 2 to 3 year old whiskey in about 3 days with this water. We've got a process where we can age it very quickly and actually make whiskey in 3 days. If we wanted to stretch that, maybe a week if you had to. But alcohol as one. Aquaponics, we had a study done in India on this water that showed that it grew plants faster, bigger, better. In fact, they even actually made a drink over there that was anti-cancerous, and they tested it. We haven't even talked about the cosmetics yet because this water can be used in cosmetics. We actually at one time had a cosmetics line, but we could not make enough water for the cosmetics and for our bottling at the same time. So we decided that we wanted to help people more with their health than the cosmetic line. So we shut that down to divert the water to just drinking water. Our biggest problem in the past has been being able to supply enough water to people. There's sometimes we've been 3 to 6 months backlogged on being able to supply water to people. So we want to rectify that, and we need an expansion plan. And I've been asked by many different communities if I consider their community to put a plan in. In fact, one of the reasons why we're looking at Texas, Ruben and I had an inquiry, what was that, about 4 or 5 months ago, about putting it into a college town in Texas.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah. Right out here in,
Yeah.
near the, A&M, I'm sorry, what city was that?
It was college town, wasn't it, or near
No, not
college?
College Station. There's a satellite, A&M facility.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And it was, unfortunately, we looked at it, and it wasn't a valid request. It was someone who's,
It was, we were told that it was going to be, pushed through, that the city had not really had heard about it. It was going to take a little while, and we kind of put that on the back burner, but that's why we came to you guys, because you guys, streamline the process, understand the whole process, all that behind the scenes logistics that's why we're coming to you guys. So we're not having to reinvent the wheel
yeah.
to move. Yeah.
So for auxiliary business, it's anything you can imagine, anything that uses water, and you want to increase the efficiency of your production, efficiency of the product, anything that uses water. I mean,
Especially in the medical community, Steve, you might want to talk about your D-ribose study that's happening, how that, once we quantify some of these things, how that could grow into a myriad of possibilities in the pharma industry.
Yeah, we actually are doing, we are approved. We're waiting for the hospital to actually start the study. Is people who have heart problems, who have to undergo some sort of operation, 60% of those people or greater go into AFib. And of course, that causes a lot of problems. Mortality is one of them. Expenses is another one of them. And they found out that part of it is due to the lack of energy in the mitochondria and the ATP generation. And that's one thing that this water helps rectify. And so we linked up with LS Therapeutics. They funded the study, and the Swedish hospitals are funding the study themselves. They're putting in $400,000 to $500,000 to do their bid on it. And what it does is D-ribose with our water will help prevent AFib. The study we're undergoing is just how many of that, whether it's 2%, 5%, 50%, 60%, whatever. And so we've been waiting a couple of years for that. It's been approved, but COVID stopped any heart operations for a while. So we waiting for that to clear, and then that cleared, and then we found out a pharmaceutical company didn't like us being able to prevent AFib unless you bought their drug, so they jumped in.
We were impeding on their turf, so they kind of stifled it. But
Stifled
it's
it
on track.
And their study flopped, so the hospital came back to us and said, "Oh, sorry, let's go on with the study again, and we're going to put a couple $100,000 more into your study." So we're doing that. The water, when we run it through 10 times. And please, I'm not a medical doctor. Don't take anything I say as medical, but we run this water through 10 times and it's a topical, and that's what we actually use for the cosmetics. And it has been known to stop skin cancers and melanomas. We have some very personal experiences with that ourselves. But by soaking the melanomas with our X10 water, it actually kills the melanomas. So that is why the other thing we're looking at is a community that we can link up with that will help us with future medical studies on this water. This is just the tip of the iceberg on it. We could do 100 different medical studies on this alone for different things that it does. But right now we want to make a bottled water that we get out to people, and then all the studies can follow. But we would like people that would also like to help us link up with, I know, Texas A&M or some facility that would like to start doing some medical studies on this.
Okay, perfect. John asked a question from the city of Ballinger. You mentioned, and in a similar, it wasn't a similar water bottling project, but it was a water bottling project. They were doing long-term 50-year agreements with the city to lock in a purchase from the city supply. You mentioned well water sourcing at your sites. Are you solely committed to using well sourced water, or would you look at raw or treated water from the city and then break it?
Any water. We've even taken toilet water and purified it. It makes no difference with the sources. We might have to pre-filter it a little bit different, but we don't care whether it's well water, aquifer water, runoff water, roof water. We really don't care.
Okay. Talk about the employees, kind of paint a picture of the makeup of the employees that will be needed for the facility. I appreciated what you said, that you will be hiring locally. You won't be bringing people in from other areas, only except for training. Talk about the employees that you'll need for the facility.
I'll let Ruben address that one.
Kirsten, I want to talk about the specifics as to who gets paid what or whatnot, but I know we're going to need about 20. We're going to start with about 10 employees. We're going to need some management. We're going to need some specific, on the bottling line. So those will be kind of more of an entry level type jobs, but definitely on the management and marketing. I mean, really the only people that are coming to this project is the family. So, 3 or 4 people are going to be running it along with myself. So we're going to need about 15 to 20 employees on top of that. But Kirsten, maybe you can give us a little bit more in depth on the tiers. I know somebody asked, kind of wages and whatnot, if you want to give some generals, on that.
Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned, we would be, part of the executive team. And I think we would like to hire from Texas employees or obviously cast a net in the applicant pool for employees in Texas that would be able to serve on our executive team. But we're also, we're not above either. We are kind of all hands on deck kind of approach. So we would be down in the warehouse as well and working with the employees and training the employees directly. We would need to work in the warehouse, bottling line, supervisors, things along that nature. And so wages would be, commensurate to what the market would be in Texas, but, off the top of my head, thinking $15, $20 an hour, along that range, especially if someone's able to contribute with some experience in similar lines of work. We also it's really important to us that we elevate the community. So we really want to, find communities that, would support us while we support the community, and finding employees, helping them rehabilitate people maybe with disabilities, people that
Are you getting this, Eric?
Mm-hmm.
People that, may have fallen on hard times and need a chance to restart. We really want to find people that are committed, are loyal, kind of a family environment. We say I love you to our employees, even though part of that is because we are family, but we also just tell people, we love them. It's kind of a family culture, and we want that to be, part of the culture that we implement as we expand. Eventually, we'd love to even have facilities that have on-site daycare, or help mothers pay for daycare for their children. So these are some of the longer term things we want to incorporate as we expand and make part of our company culture. But I hope that answers the question.
And I would like to implement some middle management. We need a nice CFO, a logistics manager, things of that nature. So I think those would be higher paying jobs. I mean, maybe in the, low six-figure, high 80s to 90s is what I'm kind of budgeting for. So just to kind of answer, to help maybe dial that in a little bit better. So definitely some decent paying jobs as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm going to go through some of these questions because we try to keep it on pace. If we need a little extra time, no problem. But we had some really great questions here. Let me get to Donnie, mayor from the city of Ballinger, Texas. If you were to put your finger on three things, and I think this is important because you've really discussed one of the I'm going to say quality of life factors that you feel is very important in a location that you're looking for. But what would you say three things you could say are a deciding factor or a tipping factor for choosing a community?
If I could interject here, I think it would be 3 F's. It'd be faith, family, and friends. And so we're Christian background. We believe this is a God-given mission. So we'd like to find a community that shares the same faith or a similar faith, just because that's what gets us out of bed. It's not the money or recognition. Faith is the basis to the company. Family, it's really important that there's activities for us as a family to participate together. Hiking, golfing, being able to be outdoors year round would be
I was
nice.
selling them on our rivers and lakes that we have in the South Texas area. That's what I know, being from San Antonio.
And then friends, being a part of a community where we're at now. We participate in the Chamber of Commerce. We know the mayor very well. We like to be part of fundraisers and work in the soup kitchen. So, being a part of the community would be really important to us as well. So if I could summarize it in 3, I think, short points, I think that would be it.
Perfect. So I would suggest a community in your cover letters address that, talk about those 3 things as a starting point so that they'll be encouraged to dive deeper into the statistics and the needs from the building and electrical and all those other things. Because I know some of that, those are the non-known things a lot of times when a community says, why didn't we get chosen? And so probably need to address those in your responses. Got a question, and this is kind of an anonymous attendee. In terms of the claims, you've mentioned a lot about the alcohol made from or no hangovers, things like that. Are those derived from studies or just things that you personally know?
They're done from personal studies. We have not done a formal clinical study on all those. As I mentioned, we'd like to get more into that. Just because when you do those formal studies and then release the results to those things, your growth becomes rather exponential. And we're fighting exponential growth right now without having to worry about, people clamoring for this for other uses. We need to build the infrastructure first. We were approved and we were going to go ahead with the liver and the kidney because we have hundreds of those cases and we have some of them documented. We had a formal study being done through it, approved through the IRB, the Internal Revenue Board or Internal Review Board of a hospital. COVID hit, so the study was put on hold. And with that, then we didn't have the access to the capital anymore to fund the studies. We would be glad to re-engage those studies in the future. However, you have to realize that when you produce a study and it does state and it does prove that you cure liver and kidney problems, you have another problem again. And we have enough problems with growth right now without having to fight other battles. Yes, we will get to that when we start building a facility out and we start working with the community and with the local medical community and start producing these studies. Then we'll be able to raise more capital so that we can expand more. That's when we're going to need one of these in every state.
Yeah.
And just not, I've even been asked by the Chinese to build a facility in Hong Kong. It was, they're doing aquaponics there, and they've studied our water, and they were going to build a $200 million study over there, and they were asking how much we needed, and we told them 30 to 50 million to do it in Hong Kong. However, because of the political climate right now and what's going on over there, I'm not sure that the project will move ahead, and I'm not sure I want to do the project over there, to be perfectly honest.
I
But to
also
answer
want
your question on the science, though, we do have the quantifiable data with some university studies back in the actual science. Maybe some of the medical claims, obviously, that still needs to be expanded on. But the science behind it is pretty quantified.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
was just going to
Kristen.
say that it, the as far as the claims is what the water is itself, all the scientific claims, because I'm in charge of marketing, so I have to walk that line. All the claims that are made as far as the science of the water are substantiated by research and by studies done independently at various universities and institutions, including Penn State, Arizona State, Washington State, UC Davis, etc. So the claims as far as what the water is and even how it's categorized, that's all substantiated by research and development. We've been doing this for over 20 years at this point. But the medical claims, the medical area, that's a separate bucket. And we will be delving more into that when it makes sense. But the product itself, when we talk about any claims of the product, scientific claims, that's all backed by science and research.
Perfect. Got a question in terms, I think you answered this before, just a real quick one. Does it need to be a standalone building, or can it be a multi-tenant building, or I'm going to throw in there a build to suit?
I think any of them would fit us with meeting the parameters that we described earlier. It doesn't matter if it's multi-tenant. That could work as well.
Okay. Well, we went over the estimated annual median wages for new jobs, correct? Could you just restate it? And I guess it really depends on the staff level. But
sure, but we'll have a handful of jobs in the $15 to $20 range. We'll have some management jobs in the $50,000 to $75,000 range, and then maybe some top management, upper executives, in the $100,000 range or so, or plus.
And that's the start of, obviously, when this grows into a multi-state, multinational, we are going to be looking. I mean, it'll be like, who does Google hire? Who does Apple hire? Who does Dell Computer hire, that sort of stuff. And of course, it'd be nice to be able to tap the local talent there.
Yes, and this will be our HQ. So we would expand this facility as much as possible and then have the satellite facilities be smaller versions of this. Perfect.
Got a question from Chris McGuire down in Clyde. Great elite city of ours, helping him with another project. In terms of highway access or rail access, would you say highway access is more important?
At this point, for sure, highway would be, more relevant at this moment. We gotta get the UPS and FedEx guys, and obviously local ingress, egress, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
And
Later on,
another
rail would
thing,
matter.
if I can interject for a second,
Please.
is we also call these factories in a can, because we've designed these units to be built into shipping containers. And so when we go into another city, uh, you'll receive several shipping containers that have the components in it ready to go already. And you'll just hook up water and power and you'll have a facility immediately. So we are planning on using manufacturing down in Texas to help build these things. Houston would be a nice access because they have a lot of shipping containers, used ones that we can buy and refurb and build our factories into those and ship them out.
Kind of a
So
modular
eventually,
approach.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so at some point we will want access to rail or even ship by truck, these to move them to different cities.
Perfect. Initial capital investment, future capital investment, you tapped into that earlier.
Yeah, I kind of tapped on that. I mean, 750 to 1.5 million to start is what we're working with, generally speaking. With a $5 million, aggregate capital raise on the second tranche. And then the 10 to 20s when we start to expand. Which is a longer time frame, 18 to 24 months.
So Cisco from Roswell, New Mexico, another one of our elite cities. Thank you for the question. Would a available and ideal facility with rail access offset your desire to be within 100 miles of a large city? So if I can decipher that, if they're outside of 100 miles, but they have the ideal facility with rail access to offset it, would you take a look at their facility or put it into consideration?
I think that logistically would be considered because, like I said, I mean, our main business is not exactly having to be right next to the big city. We just noticed that, especially with the logistics of shipping and stuff, we noticed that does tend to cost more the more rural you are, so that was kind of the main concern. Like Kirsten said, roughly half our cost is shipping. So anything we can do to mitigate that cost is just really one of the main factors. But if
Okay,
that works, then that's a possibility.
Right now, we've just got one more question from Anonymous. Donnie, thank you. I agree. The culture is amazing at this company. So she just wanted to let you guys know she appreciated the culture that you're looking for.
Thank you.
And anonymous attendee asked, the employee pool that you're seeking locally does not appear to be the ones overseeing the science. Who and where are these folks located? And additionally, given the science involved, the project seems to require a super quality laboratory type facility. Is that the case?
I wouldn't say it needs to be a super quality lab. I mean, like a high-end lab. Not necessarily. But Stephen, you might want to speak to that. And then also the management of the science behind it is really just kind of the processors, in my opinion. But I'll let you expand on that.
Typically, what we've done in the past and would like to do in the future is we team up with universities for a couple of reasons. Is that they tend to be more critical and independent. So we aren't producing the scientific papers ourselves. They're produced by a third party. They're verified by a third party. We work with the University of Washington, and of course, Dr. Gerald Pollack up there, because he's the scientific brains behind Easy Water, and we had him study our water and proved it was easy water. When it came to deuterium pleated, we went out to UC Davis, out to their isotope labs. We had it tested there, and we also had it tested up at Montana State University for the deuterium depletion. When it came to the basic material science of it, we went to Penn State Material Science Labs. So we work with other scientific brains, and we help them study the water and verify it, and they produce their own results. And therefore, what we scientifically state, even though it's because of our water, we're not the ones that produce those reports. We aren't self-serving in that matter. Yes, we would like to have a lab where we can do testing and basic testing with, but that's why the community is involved. We want to be involved with the community. We want to be near location centers where we might work with SMU, Texas A&M, whoever. I'm sure you probably have some world-renowned facilities down there for medical and for scientific labs. I've worked with labs in Germany. We worked with labs. We had some testing done in China, you know, and they produce their own results. And so no one has to rely upon what we state as self-serving. It's self-serving enough that this water does what it does. But we try to stay independent of that. We try to be above board, honest, and open.
Okay. And I think this question keeps circling back. That's our last question. We've got two, but Zach, if you want to repeat your power needs real quick, that would be great. But I can either email that to Zach at Round Rock, Texas, or if you can just restate the power needs.
150 kilowatts to 800 kilowatt supply, which leads to 108,000 kilowatts per month, up to 576,000 kilowatt hours per month.
Okay. And Kim again asked, I actually toured a building down in Kim's area in Coleman. Because of the cleanliness of the water and everything, I think everybody's assuming this needs to be a FDA, clean room environment type facility. Is that the case?
We have a clean room here that we did for when we were doing hand bottling. Now the bottling line we have is a self-contained clean room.
There you go. Yeah.
Where it actually washes the bottles, cleanses them, fills them up, and caps them. So the bottles are open when they go in, but then it's a working environment, ozonated, purified. We use purified water to clean the bottles itself. That wash water is actually extremely clear, and that's clean, and that's what we return back to the city itself. So the city gets purified water back. They give us contaminated water, we give them purified water back. Anyhow, that water then, the fill water is filled in the bottles, it's capped, and the device that comes out, or the bottle, the element that comes out itself, is purified and sterilized. So we don't need a clean room facility. We would like to have a small one so we can do hand bottling of things or hand testing if we have to in that clean room. But the clean room we have right now is a very small one that is about, it's about probably 8 feet wide by about 20 feet long. It's just a small one that we have some hand bottling equipment in there.
Perfect. All right, we've got one more question. They keep flowing in. Thank you for your questions. I want to make sure that they're all answered. John, again from Ballinger, he says you mentioned easy water. I assume this is a reference to exclusion zone water.
That's correct.
Could you explain what the biggest hurdle for your process to overcome contaminants that you fight to get to the stratum of pure liquid water during processing? John, you sound like a scientist.
Yeah, and he is correct. It's easy zone water. It is easy water. And Jerry, who's a personal friend of mine, I wanted to try to stay out of that, but and I don't want to mention something about Jerry, but anyhow, let's just say Jerry only drinks our water, or drinks our water. And when he tested it up in his lab, it's one of the only waters. In fact, I talked to him, as the only water he would test was ours. And he's trying to stay independent because he doesn't want to get tied into any particular water, because he's trying to keep his independence, his academic independence. When he tested our water, it said it was the purest and best example of easy water he has ever found, period, on the face of the earth. And he uses our water as an example. If you watch a bunch of his speeches, he won't mention us by name because he's trying to keep his independence. But as far as the contaminants that we do, because of our process and the way we do, we really don't have any hurdles. We just have tested the water along the different stages and we have different stages to remove different contaminants. And by the time we get the feed water to my devices, which will purify and change the water at that point, it's almost a medical grade water. It is a medical grade water. And we go, even though it's purified, we still send it through a vapor compression distiller to do it. So it's actually double distilled, and it has UV hitting it, it has ozone hitting it, it has RO, it has DI, it has everything on it.
Perfect. Last question, one more. Kim from Coleman asked, do you have an estimate on the price point per bottle or per gallon that you'll market?
That's not Coleman, Alabama, is it?
Coleman, Texas.
Oh, Texas. Okay. I see. My brother lives down in Coleman, Alabama. Price point per bottle or gallon. People who come in and purchase the water from us are buying it at $13 per gallon right now. One bottle sold in the grocery stores, their price point is about $2.50 to $3. Although in California, they were selling it for $8 a bottle out there in Erewhon, which is their high-end store out there. The price point per bottle that we sell it at is about $2 to $2.15 per customer. And that's to the wholesale price. And then I see we also say, what do you do with the sludge from cleaning the water? The water that we clean, by the time it gets to, if you want to call it sludge, it's not really sludge. We capture most of the contaminants, 98% or 99% of the contaminants in filters. And then those filters are will be disposed of either in a burn center or something like that. We're not quite sure. We'd like to, that's down the line. We'd like to do a plasma system where it's turned back into carbon. Then those carbon are used to build bricks or something like that.
Okay, perfect.
So we don't release anything back into the environment.
Awesome. I think we got through all the questions. So thank you. Now the important stuff, submissions. We're going to put up the poll. This will alert us immediately that if you are going to put in a submission, that will allow our team to reach out and work with you on your submission to make sure it's exactly what they're looking for. Those submissions are going to be due June 16th at 5 p.m. But please don't wait till then. The sooner we can get them, the more we can organize them and give you feedback. Submissions will go through www.gslipportal.com. You'll find, do a search, look up for Project Aquatex. They'll pull up to the top and you'll hit submit and complete the process. And then we will put all of those submissions together and present them to the team at Project Aquatex for review. And then we'll reach out to the communities and start setting up site visits of the communities that they're interested in. There will be recordings and emails going out from myself. And if you have any questions about the submission and the submission process, Amanda Tompkins and Kara Harris are two of our amazing community assessment directors that will actually walk you in and walk you through the process and additionally gather any questions. If there are any other questions, also in the portal, you can ask those questions on the project report itself, and we'll answer those so that they are made public back to everyone else. Unless it's a specific question, we'll keep it private to you. We are exactly 19 minutes over, and I truly want to thank the communities. You dedicate your time to come in and listen to these projects. I hope this is an exciting project that will find a home in your community if there's a great fit. But absolutely, thank you for spending this time with us. And Stephen, Kirsten, Ruben, thank you so much, not only for the time today, but the time over the past several months of working with us and gathering this information so that we could help you find the right site. And we're excited about doing so. So with that said, we will say goodbye today, and we look forward to seeing everyone on our next Prospect Live. And thanks again and have a great day. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Eric. We appreciate that. Thank you, Ashley.